Alright, welcome back, guys. If you're a reloader, it can be you're a seasoned reloader, or you're a beginner reloader, or you're looking for those videos to give you hey, what do I need, but I want to be safe about it. I want to reload, I want to make my own bullets, but I want to be safe. I don't want primers exploding on my face. And I know that those are some of the concerns that some of you might have, because those are the concerns I had about 11 years ago when I started reloading. So basically what I want to do in this video is kind of go over some of the safety features that you would need, or safety gear that you would need, or knowledge that you would need in order to be a successful reloader. First off, latex gloves. You may or may not need these, but when if you're a starting reloader, I'm assuming you're a starting reloader, you might have a let's say you start with a turret press. You have a single stage, turret, and progressive. Let's say you start with a turret press, where you can do single manual operations, or you can do, rotating operations. So you're going to be handling powder, you're going to be handling bullets. Maybe your bullets are cast bullets, maybe they're plated. But anyways, you're going to get that dust in your hand, and gloves really help. If you decide not to wear gloves, it's fine. Buy yourself a bottle of that orange, simple orange, I think it's called. It's like one of those powders, liquid grainy powders that mechanics use to wash your hands, and everything comes out of your hands real easily. Another thing is safety equipment. Eye protection. I have had primer explosions. I have had springs jump out at me, and definitely you want to protect your eyes. As you reload and make some bullets, these are all reloads with cast powder coated bullets. I bought these, I didn't make them. I bought the projectiles, I did make the rounds. Some of the things that you're going to want to do is label your reloads. In this case, I got the type of bullet that I'm making, type of round, powder, what kind of brass am I using, what kind of primer. In this case, small rifle primers. The date is important, because sometimes you may want to make a change to your recipe or add onto it, and you want to make sure that you know when was that change made. Bullet weight, how many grains of powder, what was the overall, and I add what the power factor is, because I'm doing a 9mm major. If you're doing regular bullets, you might not have to worry about that. And the next icing. So having a recipe when you go to the range is important, because maybe you want to make a lighter load, or a mouse fart, what they call, with your caliber. Maybe you want to make them medium. Maybe you want to make them a little on the hotter side. You want to know which bullets are which. You can label them by rows. You can mark them with markers, but definitely have a recipe with you. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about brass. In this case, this is 9mm. And I have bought some of these, but majority of them I have picking up from the range. Depending on the range that you go, you are able to pick up, or you may be able to pick up range brass. Now keep in mind, just because you pick it up from the range, it doesn't mean that the brass is perfect and you just go ahead and reload. You gotta make sure that the primary pockets are within specs. Make sure there are no cracks in your brass. Make sure that the brass is not stepped. Stepped is that it has a line towards the middle, because sometimes if you shoot, that piece of the brass breaks and it sticks in your barrel, and it's a pain in the ass to remove it. Also, a lot of people like to keep different badges of different brands of cases. So all the Blazers, they keep on one side, all the Hornady, all the Starline, So if you want to do that, you can do so. I've also bought This bag has brand new Starline brass, which you can, and then this is mostly wrench pickups, the silver looking brass. For whatever brass you decide to use, make sure that it is not cracked, and make sure that it is up to specs, and make sure the primer pocket is good to go. And that is what I have to say about brass. Alright, let's talk about reloading manuals. It is critical that you use a manual. Yes, you can find a lot of recipes online, but it's good to have these manuals so that you can have like a baseline of information. Sometimes I find information online and I go to these books to make sure that they are on the spec. You know, Lee makes them, Hornady, Lyman. This particular Lyman is a Cast Bullets handbook, but there are definitely many publications and manuals, you know, that you can use to help you with the reloading process. So yeah, make sure you reference these manuals. They give you the minimum powder load that you need, because if you load less than the minimum, you may have a bullet that gets stuck in your barrel. There's not enough force to take it out, and that can create a disaster if it loads a different round right after and you have two bullets in the barrel. If it's too much or over the maximum, you can have an explosion on your hands. Ask me how I know. I had a Glock that I was shooting, and it had a little bit too much of powder, and Glock exploded, and luckily it's polymer parts, so I was able to replace those parts, but it was a big scare. So yeah, use the reloading manuals. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about primers. I have this toolbox on my reloading bench, and in the middle drawer I have all my primers. This bench is located inside my house, air conditioned, but make sure you read and find out exactly how to store primers. I like to store them in a cool place. Definitely you don't want to store them in a garage where it's super hot or that it freezes. So maybe consider bringing them inside. Along the same lines of primers, you also want to make sure that you keep all your powders in a cool, dry environment. So if you live in Florida like I do, definitely don't keep them in the garage where it's super humid. Or if you're in some of the colder states, you know, you don't want to freeze, keep them in a garage that freezes over. So definitely have a variety of powders. And along the same lines of powders, make sure that you're using the powder that is ideal for your load. For example, this H4350 from Hodgdon is good for rifle powders. 30 Winchester, 7 Remington mag, and some others. Yes, you can use other calibers, but make sure that it is acceptable. And then you have the 777s, which is the black powders, magnum powders. Tight wad is, if you notice here, is mostly used for shotgun reloading. Trail Boss is good for the cowboy type. So, you know, make sure that you know what the powder that you're using. Most likely, if you're reloading rifle and pistol, most likely it's not going to be the same powder. Also, a tip that I was taught and I learned: if you're reloading, make sure that you keep the powder that you're using out with the press. Don't put it back in the shelf, you know, so this way you know that for example, this load of 405 long Colt, I'm using this particular powder, and if I need to refill the hopper, I can do that, but there will be no mistaking which powder I'm using. Okay, let me say a quick note about dies. Dies are very important. For the most part, you won't have any issues because when they come labeled, so you know, okay, I'm reloading 3030. These are the dies for that. I'm reloading 243 or 3030. However, there are some dies that are universal. Like for example, this die over here. This is what they call a Hornady powder cup die. If you're a beginner or if you're a seasoned reloader, make sure that I recommend you use this die. Why? Because, I'm sorry, this is not a powder cup, this is a LockOut die, RCBS LockOut die. And it's good because if you have the proper amount of powder in the case, the case is gonna go up into the die, and after you set it up, you will see this line pop up, and it usually set up so the line, it's, you know, right there lined up with the top of the die. However, if the powder is, if you have too much powder, let's say you did a double charge, or if you have under powder, the machine will stop. It'll lock you out, hence the LockOut die, and it'll be an abrupt stop, so you will know that something is wrong. There's other dies, for example the Hornady powder cup die that I have on this press. This one will not lock the press. It'll show you if you have too much powder, it'll show it, and if you're under power, it'll be under, but you have to look at it with every stroke of the handle. So that's why I recommend the LockOut die, and I will show you an example. Okay, so now you see that case is absolutely loaded with powder, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actuate the handle, and you're going to see that the handle here doesn't go anymore. It's locked. So that's what happens when there is too much powder. Okay, now I've inserted a case that is empty, has no powder, and we should experience the same thing. We'll actuate the lever, and again we have a lock because it doesn't have the correct powder. So that is how having that LockOut die works, and that is the important thing of having a station that you can check your powder with. And you can use this in a turret press. Technically you could use it in a single stage, but when you get the most buck for its money, it's a progressive where you're doing other actions and you're not really paying attention, and all of a sudden, boom, your press locks, and then you quickly realize, oh, I have a problem with the case. So hopefully this helps. Some of the safety measures that you need to know. I hope you have safe reloading, and I will see you on the next one.